Hey guys, hi, it's Judy from Nutrition with Judy, and today I have the pleasure of having Keto Mary 71 with me. Her name is Mary, obviously, and so we are going to talk about all things sugar addiction, food addiction, and how to heal yourself from having too much sugar. Mary, thank you so much for joining me. I think if you can introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your healing journey and sort of like how you got all started.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. So I'm 48 and I have had a lifelong, destructive love affair with food, basically. I could trace it back to, using food for comfort when I was a kid. Essentially my story is I've struggled with my weight my entire life. I went on my first diet my freshman year in high school. It was like a starvation diet. I ate like a banana and do you remember, I don't know how old you are, but do you remember the figurines, like the 100-calorie wafer bars? They were these like diet bars.
There was a period where there was a lot of like 100-calorie snacks, but I don't know maybe specifically the wafer bar, but
I'm probably a lot older than you. No. But there was these figurine bars. They were like wafer bars and they were 100 calories. So I'd like eat a banana and one of those every day. So I was really like hardly eating anything at all. Lost like 40 something pounds my freshman year and maintained it most of high school. And that was because I discovered bulimia. And binge, so I would binge and purge, and then by my senior year my parents hospitalized me for that, so I had to stay in a facility for like 6 or 8 weeks, can't remember, for that. And after that I didn't continue with binging and purging, but I had that bulimic mindset a lot of my life. A lot of people think that bulimia is just like binging and purging, but it's basically any behavior that you do, you're trying to undo something. So you binge and then you take laxatives, or you binge and then you like excessively exercise, or you binge and then you fast for several days trying to like undo it. So I had a lot of that, behavior off and on over the years. And gradually, and I have 3 children, and each, my first 2 pregnancies, I gained a lot of weight and then didn't really take it off. And so my weight kept climbing, and I topped out at age 42 at 260 pounds. And I had done a couple of stints with low carb, Atkins, and I was mainly a lifelong calorie counter. Mm-hmm. I was constantly counting calories. I knew I had memorized calorie counts for everything that I ate. I had one of those, because this was pre-internet, right? One of those big, thick calorie books that I would refer to all the time.
Okay.
So when I hit 42, I had been, years in 2008, I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I had high blood pressure. I was taking medication for both of those things. I had asthma and allergies. I had used an inhaler since the time I was 7 years old. I snored. I had sleep apnea. I had psoriasis. I had all these, health issues. And so at 42, I just felt really tired, and I woke up one morning, the night before was my husband's birthday celebration, and I had binged on the cake and ice cream, which was not unusual for me. I'd binged on the cake and ice cream. I got up the next morning, I got on the scale and it was 260, and I was horrified. I remember thinking, I'm only 40 pounds away from 300 pounds. How did I get here?
Right.
And my blood sugar was almost as high as my weight. And that freaked me out a little bit. And so it wasn't like I'd had other, I hadn't had other days where I woke up and I was like, I'm sick of this and this is the day, right? But I don't know, something that day was different. And I just began that day. And a few days later, my friend, I started with low carb, Atkins that first day. Mm-hmm. And a few days later, I was talking to my friend, Brian Williamson, who he's the keto evangelist. And he said, I told him I'm doing Atkins again. And he's like, forget Atkins. You need to do keto. And I was like, I'd never heard the word. So he told me what it was, and the rest is history. So I started keto, and I really thought he was crazy at first. I was like, what? High fat? Like, I'm trying to lose weight, Brian.
Right.
You know, like in my mind, it was like the fat was going to make me fat. He's like, no, really. And because I knew him and knew that he was a smart person, I trusted him and I just went for it. And I couldn't, you know, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't, you know, if someone else had told me, I'd be like, no, you know, but then I experienced it. I wasn't suffering from hunger.
Sure.
I felt like satisfied and like not like I was on a diet, like for the first time ever. I couldn't believe it didn't, the weight loss part felt effortless, but the mental struggle, that was really huge. And, you know, it's something I still kind of battle with, but like not on the same level as like, you know, that first year, but I cried a lot over not being able to eat carbs. Like it was really emotional. And it's, I can laugh about it now and it's funny, but like I was very upset. Like, I'm like, it's not fair. You know, other people can have cheesecake and not get fat. Why can't I? And I was also really angry too, because once I discovered, you know, that Brian was right and that, you know, here I am I'm doing everything opposite of like what all the experts say you should do. And I was experiencing, you know, miraculous things in my mind. I got angry. So then I was like, I went from being upset about stuff to just being mad. And I was like, you know, mad about everything and railing against, you know, pharmaceutical companies and the sugar, all the, you know, the American Diabetes Association, all that. So anyway, but so ultimately I lost 106 pounds, reversed all my health issues. I still struggle a little bit with psoriasis. It hasn't gone completely away. I'm wondering if, you know, a long enough time on strict carnivore will help that, but it's like, I don't have it near to the degree that I used to. So I'm pretty good.
So how long have you been carnivore?
So the last couple of years, I'm like off and on. I'm more like meat-based keto, but you know, I'm doing your carnivore 75 hard. So I'm, you know, and I've done the longest I did it prior was 96 days.
Oh, okay.
With not a single, except for coffee, not a single plant food except for the coffee. And I did that, and it was really interesting. It was a very interesting experiment. I didn't lose more weight. I didn't initially, but then it like slowly, you know, came back on. Yeah. So I didn't really lose weight doing it. But I felt really good, and I had always felt really good on keto too. But what I noticed when I added, the first thing I added back in was an avocado, because I missed avocado. Like I used to eat avocado a day, but after doing 96 days of carnivore, I ate avocado, and then for like 3 hours, I had like a runny nose and itchy eyes. And
oh wow!
Yes, it was very eye-opening for me. But I kept eating. The other interesting part of that is I kept eating them, and that went away. It's like, you know, my body like adjusted, and I thought that's pretty scary.
Yeah, no, they there's a lot of people in the space that say that initially, right, even with sugar, so if you start eating carbs a little bit, initially you may feel these like spikes in sugar and your body can't handle the glucose, but over time your body will balance out and then you can kind of take in more glucose. And so I think in the same vein, you can do that with like anti-nutrients or plant foods. Yeah. So, but if it takes time to sort of like assimilate to it, maybe it's right. So, I mean, people will have like constipation from going carnivore, nausea from eating too much fat, but other than that, there's no like symptoms of going carnivore, right? I mean, like the low energy, but like you don't get that bloat and that sick feeling you do when you eat plant food. So it is really interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the number one argument my husband makes for me. He's like, I can handle carbs. Like I can handle plant foods. And I'm like, yeah, but you haven't really gone, like he's only gone about a month carnivore, and he's a moderator. So he's like, I don't like this.
Yeah, my husband's a moderator also, and he likes variety, and he doesn't experience any, like that we know of, any ill effects from anything. Yeah. And he's naturally a moderator, and he never understood my struggle. He would always say to me, it's real simple, just eat less and exercise. Oh, really? Why didn't I think of that? You know?
Oh, that's so funny. My parents used to always say that to me. So like it's crazy. I have a very similar past as you. So I struggled with bulimia, and you know, like I never got over that part. So like, you know, it's like when I would binge, then it's always that like, okay, what can I do to rid myself. So I would use laxatives. I used laxatives forever, and that probably damaged my gut. I did over exercise. I would, purge and all those things, or I would like starve or, like cut my calories. But, and so whenever I would talk to my husband or parents, like they never understood until I read Gretchen Rubin's book many years ago. And then I found that whole abstainer moderator, and I knew I was always black and white with my thinking. And my husband used to always go, there's like gray in life, right? Like my friend used to go, there's always tomorrow, Judy, you can eat that tomorrow. And it was just, I always thought something was wrong with me, right? And so then once I found that, it was a sigh of relief, right? So
yeah.
And maybe Mary, maybe you can talk about it really quickly for people that don't know what an abstainer versus moderator is. But that gave me so much solace as to kind of why I function the way I do and why carnivore works so well for me. And so it's so interesting because I have a very, very similar past as you. And like I went to outpatient care as well. So okay.
Yeah, I did all that stuff, and I tried like the 12-step programs and other programs and therapy groups and all kinds of
And it doesn't work because it's all
they
in
try
the
to
moderator. Yes, like they're like, so the challenge, like, would you have challenge foods where they'd be like, you need to eat the cupcake while we're sitting here observing you, and then they would not let you go to the bathroom by yourself. I don't know if you had these, like it was.
I don't remember them doing like the challenge food necessarily, but like when I was in the hospital, they would watch you eat, and then you had to stay with them for several hours in a room in a group setting, so you couldn't they wouldn't even let you use the bathroom, like even if you had to go, because they didn't want you to go purge. Yeah, so stuff like that. But so I mean, it's actually very freeing. It was very freeing for me to know that I'm an abstainer. But oh gosh, now my dogs are gonna bark. But when a lot of people don't believe that they could abstain. And
so Mary, before we get into that, why don't we talk a little bit about abstainer and a moderator? So what exactly is an abstainer? I mean, do you want to?
So for me, it means because carbs are my issue, and I consider myself a food addict, not just a sugar addict. Like I could binge eat anything. It didn't necessarily have to be sugar. So for me, it means I abstain from sugar and grains. I don't, because for me, I've said this a million times, like 1 cookie is too many and 10 is not enough. Like there is no I'm not able to take a couple bites and walk away. I can't eat just 2 cookies and walk away. That's never how I've been. So abstaining just means avoiding that altogether versus moderating. Now, here's the thing about moderators. Moderators don't have to try. They don't have to work at it. Yes. They just naturally are moderators. My husband is a natural moderator. We can go out to eat. He'll leave food on his plate. He'll order a dessert. He'll eat half of it and walk away. And I'm like,
how do you do that? Right?
Yeah. I couldn't relate to that at all. He doesn't even actually eating is annoying to him. He's like, eating is such a chore. And he's never struggled with, being overweight. But a few years ago, he wanted to put on weight. And that's what he told me. Like he was purposely trying to eat and force himself to eat, and he hated it. And that's what he told me, eating was such a chore. I was like,
it's so funny. Like, what a nice problem.
Like, man, if I wanted to put out, like, he just wanted to gain like 20 or 30 pounds. I'm like, I could do that like in a week. So yeah, that's the difference. So not having it at all, and being able to just, handle regular portions. A moderator naturally portion controls, and they don't have to think about it.
Yeah, and then the only thing I would say is if you force a moderator to try to abstain, so if you were to put a person that is a moderator and say you can never have chocolate for like this year, they will go stir crazy. So because for them, nothing can be off the table, and then when you do that, they get all the stress from that. Whereas abstainers, if you say, this is off limits, then their mind doesn't start processing, okay, like what can I eat? So like, on keto, for example, when you get like this 20-gram allotment of carbs, your mind starts racing of, okay, well, I can have that because it's technically under the 20-gram carbs. And you just start, doing this like mind games. But moderators, if it's on the table, then that 20 grams, they can be super successful.
Right. Well, and that's why I like to make this distinction, because you can tell somebody who's supposed to be an abstainer, they can't ever have something again, and they'll feel that same anxiety. And so the distinction, to how does someone know they're a moderator? Like, the anxiety, that's a great, that's a great cue, but it will also make somebody who's afraid of like giving up their drug of choice feel anxious too. So
that's true. That's true.
The distinction is, does it come naturally to you? If it comes naturally to you, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to work hard at it. And because someone who works hard at it is like, okay, I'm going to have 2 pieces of chocolate, and they have the 2 pieces of chocolate, and that's it. But they're still they walk away still thinking about the rest of the chocolate and trying to bargain. And can I have the rest of the chocolate? And, like, so if you're going through all of that stuff, or you have the 2 pieces of chocolate and it leads to a binge, you're not a moderator.
Yeah. I can give the perfect example of my husband. So I asked him for my birthday to go keto. That was like my birthday present. And so he actually went carnivore for a little bit, and he was going crazy because, he could not just stick to meat. But as soon as he started eating like more carby foods, we can have a whole pantry full of junk food and literally like the worst foods. And I will be in shock because when I'm really strict carnivore, I have no issues with that. But if I'm, like in the keto tinkering with a little bit of carbs, I am amazed at how much junk food will only be half eaten, and then it'll basically go stale before he eats it again. And I am just like, how do you do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's another example. It's somebody that can have like a box of cookies and it pretty much goes stale before they even think about eating it in.
Whereas that's my husband.
Yeah, but whereas I think most abstainers, either they will be like, okay, I don't know how to portion control, so I'm going to just toss the rest of it in the trash because they don't trust themselves, or it's that they end up eating the whole box and then, and then they're like, I can't have these junk foods at home. Like, that's probably the biggest sign when you're like, I don't have enough willpower to not have these foods at home. Those are kind of the signs that you may be an abstainer when it comes to food.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, abstaining is so much easier. I've had people ask me, you're never going to eat fill in the blank again? No, I'm not, because that would be the beginning of the end for me. I know it. I have a track record. My history says that, if I do this, that this is the way it's going to go. And so in the beginning, that first year, it was harder, like thinking about that. I mean, I had to allow myself to grieve. And, because it is a loss. When you take away the binging and the food you're binging on, you experience a loss. Yeah. And so I had to go through all of that. But now, I mean, it's just second nature. Like, I can stand in line at the grocery store, and the 3 for $1 candy bars that I used to like stock up on don't even faze me. None of it, bothers me anymore. But I totally can relate to what you're saying. Like, I do feel more satiated when I'm strictly carnivore versus when I'm keto, because even just a little bit of carbs, the good ones, it doesn't matter if they're good, right? Like, they can be triggering. They just kind of, I think my appetite when I'm keto, my appetite is bigger. I eat more in a day when I'm keto than I do when I'm carnivore.
Yeah, I think for me last year, it's, I mean, I'm sure some of it's the appetite and feeling hungry, because pretty much on carnivore, you don't really ever feel hunger. But so last year around the holidays, I went from carnivore and I went to keto, but it was like this slippery slope. So first I was like, oh, you know what, like, it's the holidays, it's okay if I eat a little bit of almonds or seeds. And then it was like every day there was something different I'd add in, like, oh, it's okay, I kind of want diet soda with my almonds, and then I would do that. And then it's like, oh, I could have sugar-free gum, and then I could have sugar-free candy, and then, oh, I could have.
That's how it goes.
Yes. And then it's like, oh, if I have just 3 M&Ms, that's still within the sugar range. You know what I mean? So, and then there were days where I started feeling low mood, low energy, and then the anxiety and depression started kicking back in. And it's like the running thoughts of, okay, can I just eat that today? Oh, I should be good. That thought. And then just the mind racing, and you will never get that if you just kick sugar to the curb or any carbohydrates, because I mean, all carbohydrates turn to sugar in your system. But I mean, so from your experience with clients and yourself, I mean, do you ever think an abstainer can dabble in, because I think a lot of people in the space are like, I cannot imagine never eating sugar again, right? I can never imagine never eating carbs again. So what would you say to that? And what has your advice been thus far?
So it's not the answer that people want to hear. I mean, I think it's just like the alcoholic or the drug addict. We don't tell the alcoholic, oh, hey, it's Christmas. Go ahead and enjoy a couple beers. We don't tell the drug addict, hey, on your birthday, go ahead, party hard. We don't say those things. And I think that those things do need to be said to food addicts. It's a very unpopular message, but society doesn't take food addiction seriously. And, keto and carnivore, specifically, they definitely do calm you down. Mm-hmm. They do, the physical cravings go away, and what you're left with is what's in your mind. And depending on your degree of dysfunction, some people just changing the way they eat is fine. They weren't too far down the food addiction road, or they just are applying willpower that other people can't. So some people that does fix it. But for me, just going keto didn't fix it. I had to deal with all my emotional, issues that went along with food, because I wasn't having cravings. I wasn't having physical cravings. Yeah. I felt good. I felt satiated, but I was still thinking, man, I really want that cheesecake. And so I had to figure out like why and where that was coming from. So I don't believe that an abstainer, that a true, someone who's truly addicted to food and has food issues can ever be a moderator. I don't think it's possible. And that's not just from my personal experience, but it's like from what I see with other people. I just think that it seems like you're getting away with it at first. Like, I think we've all done this too. We're like, oh, I'm going to have a cheat day, and you do it and you're good. You decide a once a month. We see this happen, once a month cheat day. And then you're like, oh, okay, that went really well. And you're like, but it turns into once a week. Yeah. And before you know it, you're on the downward spiral. You're right back where you started. And so even though it seems like in the beginning you can be a moderator and you're getting away with it, it's a slow fade. Like, eventually you end up back where you started.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think that's why when you start carnivore, keto, and then you sort of feed your body enough nutrients, then it really becomes a mental battle, because your body, when you had stress, when you wanted to cope, when you wanted to escape, everything that you used food addiction for, which is very similar reasons you would use nicotine and alcohol and drugs and all that stuff, yeah. Right? So, or even like a shopping addict, all of those reasons, now you need to find something else that can allow you to cope. So all of those environments, smells, sounds, cues, all of those things, even if you are nutrient rich, right, in your body, in those moments, you will mentally crave it again. And so This is where I think mindset is so important, and basically wiring your brain to choose a different path. And it'll take time, and this is the hardest part. But your body, first of all, needs to be fed properly so that it even has the strength to do that mental, challenge. But over time, as you kind of rewrite your brain to find different pathways when you feel stressed, when you feel, certain things, then you won't turn to food that, but the thing is, it is difficult, because if you used it for 30, 40 years of your life, I mean, it's going to take, it's going to take different, time.
Yeah, it takes effort. You have to pursue it. Like we call it in our program, Coach Jessica and I in our program, food sobriety. Mm-hmm. So I've been food sober for over 5.5 years, and you have to pursue it. Yeah. It doesn't just happen. And so in order, like you mentioned, rewiring your brain. So like when you're in these situations where you get the euphoric recall, like going on a vacation and to a specific, a specific place that has this specific food. And every time you've been there, you've had this specific food. You get in that situation, and you have to make that shift and say, okay, look, just because every other time that I've done this vacation and been to this place, I've had this food, doesn't mean I need to do it this time. That's something that it's like the bucket list. Like, we could check that off. We've done that already. We know what it tastes like. We know what it does to us. We've already had that experience. So now we can just, go and enjoy other aspects of the vacation.
Yes, and that's exactly why I think the holidays are hard for people, because it's similar, right? So it's these, oh, but I remember like grandma's pie or whatever the foods are that triggers you, and the thing is, everyone knows how bad they feel afterward though, right? So it's like, but it's in that moment.
Enough. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so it's in that moment, because then it's like you start thinking, oh, but I remember how good it tastes. I remember how good it makes me feel in the moment. And then I think your brain will maybe even possibly salivate because of all the like thinking. But if you visualize, so there are studies that show that when people visualize, your brain basically is not able to determine what's reality versus visualization, right? So there are studies where somebody was watching somebody play piano and certain parts of their brain lit up, and then they visualized somebody playing without anyone actually playing, same areas of the brain lit up. So when you are trying to rewire your brain, and different situations where you used to cope with sugar, cope with foods, or in the holidays where you used to, make sure and go and get that pie or whatever it is, right? If you visualize and plan out your kind of plan of attack, you will be that much more successful, because now in that moment where you may feel anxiety, your brain has already visualized a pathway to get to be successful. And so for me, that's like how I always work with my clients too. You need to visualize, you need to find methods while you're more in a parasympathetic state, so that when you're in a more fight or flight state, that you know what to do, right? And so
visualizing is definitely a great tool. And one of the other things that I use with clients is like, I call it that voice that shows up that says, the voice of sabotage that says, oh, but you're on vacation. Nobody's on vacation. Or, go ahead and have it. You could start when you can start over on Monday. So basically when that voice shows up, whatever it's saying, it's lying. It's a lie. But we like fall for it over and over. We're like, oh yeah, I could start over Monday. And then Monday comes and it's this, you got the same vicious cycle, and you just can't get out of it. So, I would identify, okay, that is a lie. When the voice shows up, okay, that's not true, because my track record shows that I never start over on Monday, or if I do, I only make it through half the day. So in order for me to avoid that, I'm just not going to give in right now. I don't do that anymore. And I would like, speak it out loud, like I'm talking to nobody, right? Like I don't do that anymore. And I have to speak the truth. So there's a lie, and and then I'm going to say the truth. And saying the truth out loud just feels very empowering, and it kind of shuts the voice down.
So in that same vein, what do you do with people that, if it's not your own voice, it's the other people, right? So it's the people that are like, oh my gosh, you're just going to eat meat, or, So at holidays, I'm sure everyone is going to deal with people saying, oh gosh, have a little pie, live a little bit.
Other people will be the voice of sabotage.
Yeah, so like
food pushers.
Yes, and a lot of them do it because of their own guilt, right? It's that they will then can process in their own mind that they're okay, because as long as I get you to do what I'm doing, then what I'm doing is okay.
They feel better.
Right?
Yes.
So like,
because when we change, it shines a light. We're doing something that shines a light on what they're not doing. But honestly, what I do with my clients, because most of the time when we're in those situations, we actually, 90% of the time, we're actually inviting that from people, because this is what we do. We show up at the Christmas party and we're like, oh, we're asking questions. What's in that? Oh, I can't have that. Oh, and we start talking about what we can't have. We bring up our diet. We start evangelizing keto or whatever we're doing, right? And so everyone around us, presumably loved ones, they just want to take care of us. They just want us to feel better. So they're like, Judy, go ahead. It's Christmas. Have it. They're not necessarily like sabotaging from a like ill intent. They're like, they want to help you because they feel bad because you just told them about how much you're suffering because you can't have all this stuff, right? So we invite that. So I tell my clients, you go in, you just put the food on your plate. Don't say a word to anybody about any of the food. Don't ask questions. And bring your own, always be prepared by bringing your own food in case there's something there you can't have. But if we don't say anything, chances are most people don't even notice. They don't even notice what we're doing. But if they do, because there are people who are all up in our business, we all have like that family member who's like, going to criticize everything you do. And there's options, but I tell my client, look, so if you eat that, you're going to feel bad, right? You're going to have a reaction. Your loved one doesn't need to know that your allergic reaction is going to be fat pants. Just say you can't eat that because you'll have an allergic reaction.
Yeah, that's really good. Now that, as you say that, it makes so much sense, because I never talk about my diet when I go to family parties, and no one ever says anything to me. Even if I'm fasting and I'm holding a like sparkling water, someone will go, "Oh, did you eat yet?" But if I say yes or no, it's just more of like a formality question more than if they really care.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. No one ever asked me like, "Oh my gosh, is that all you're eating?" I think people are so absorbed in their own world. So
they are.
You're right.
When we bring it up, and those of us that are like lifelong chronic dieters and constantly like trying, spend our whole life trying to lose weight, we have a track record with our loved ones, and our friends and family. They know us, and so then we start talking about it, and so we actually, we train people how to treat us.
Okay, so that's really helpful. So one tool I think people can take away from this is, when you go to the holiday parties, one, bring your own foods if you know that there will absolutely be no, keto/carnivore type foods. And then if you do eat there, just don't say anything about your diet. Don't bring attention to it. Talk about other things. If someone does bring it up, then just be like, hey, look, I have an allergy. I can't eat that. Or, I get really sick just from eating whatever that type of food is, and they shouldn't normally, or like, I'm going to get some blood work done.
Isn't going to force you to eat something that you just told them made you sick.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. That's so good. So one question that came in is, in terms of, let's say someone had a cheat day and they're trying to get back to carnivore or keto. So what is some tools that you've seen work for your clients to get people kind of back on the right, path?
Really the answer, we see this question all the time, I binged, how do I get back into ketosis? Well, you just do what you did before. There's no shortcuts, there's no magic trick. And I don't want to encourage people, people will ask this question online and someone will say, fast for 72 hours. Well, that's totally disordered behavior. I'm not going to tell anybody just do that, because I don't want to encourage further disordered behavior with the food. So, it is as simple as it sounds. It really is just get back on. Just go do what you did. Do what you did before. Let go of what happened. Don't dwell on it. You can't change it. You can't undo it. Just get right back on.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think we've become a society where everything's about instant gratification. And so people don't want to go through the process of, having a few days of possibly low energy. Maybe if they gained a few pounds, they don't want to have those pounds on them. So they're like, what is the fastest way that I can get back to ketosis where I was, right? And so you're right. A lot of people are like, fast for 72 hours, deplete all the glycogen in you. But it's exactly I think that's kind of disordered eating, right? So then are you going to crave food because now all of a sudden you're going to have even more dips in energy because you're trying to remove glycogen instead of using ketones, right? So I think you're right. I think it's just eat the way you were and give yourself some grace, forget what happened, and keep moving forward instead of, okay, what's the secret sauce into getting back to ketosis, right?
There's no shortcuts. There's no magic pill. Everybody, wants that. And we're so impatient because, let's face it, everything in our society is so fast paced and we have information at our fingertips. And so anything that we have to put effort into and wait for results is agonizing because we're so used to getting info like that.
Yes. What about, so someone also asked about, and it goes in the same question, but what about supplements or, any way to get back into ketosis faster? So would you recommend BHBs for people?
I don't. I think, because again, it's another one of those things that we're always looking for something. I don't know about you, but in my, I used to see, I was the infomercial queen, oh, I'm going to get that. That'll solve all my problems and I won't be fat anymore. And so stuff like that, they definitely, supplements have their place. I think the exogenous ketones are great for people who need higher ketone levels, like battling epilepsy or trying to prevent cancer, or athletes who, need that extra boost. But I don't think that for somebody who has the history of disordered eating, that getting our mindset on something like, oh, this thing here is going to be magical. It's like the apple cider vinegar and stuff that people do, like it's this magic, concoction. I think we just calm down, eat real food, accept that there are no shortcuts. I mean, there's definitely things out there that can be tools, but I think people have unrealistic expectations about a lot of stuff that's out there. And then it doesn't do, what they hoped it would do. And it just like kind of keeps you in that cycle.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So one thing is, I think when Beach Bees first came out, there were some that had no sweeteners. And now Beach Bees, the beta hydroxybutyrates, almost all of them have sweeteners. And then that is just going to fuel your sugar cravings. So yeah, like one vendor, I asked, I was working with them to possibly be a sponsor for Carnivore 75 Hard, and they had no foods that had no sweeteners. And so I was like, I'm sorry, like you can't be part of it. And they totally understood. But so yeah, that's just, I don't.
Well, and I think the companies do that because
that's what people want.
That's what us junkies want. We want something that tastes sweet, right? And so
you're right.
It's hard to find something that isn't sweet, like the collagen. Like, you don't need to put sweetener in collagen, but a lot of them they have it because they want it to be palatable to people. But the thing about, this goes back to like the abstaining and moderating. There are people that they can't do. There was a period of over 2 years where I didn't have any sweeteners at all, nothing, because I was finding that I could be out of control with the healthy keto alternative just as much as I could with the real thing. Eating a full tray of keto brownies is okay. So maybe there was no grains and sugar in it, but you still ate a whole tray of brownies. What is, that's not normal. That's not healthy. That's still binge eating. So some people need to just not do any sweeteners at all.
Yeah, so I was the same. So I used to like freeze heavy whipping cream with a little bit of sweetener and making into these like cupcake molds or like really small like molds. And then I noticed I would just go back to the freezer and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have one, and then I'm gonna have two, and then I would have half of it. And it's the same mentality, right? And then your mind starts racing like, oh, I shouldn't have that, that type of thing. And I think it's the sweeteners where it's telling your brain that something's sweet and you want more, you want that flavor to linger in your mouth. And that's why I think sweeteners are so dangerous, because when you're strong, sure, sweeteners will kind of take place. It'll manage your sugar levels in a sense, even though it does increase insulin. But when you're having those hard moments, that's when you're like, F this, I'm going back to sugars, right? And then it totally goes into a binge. So, I think everything we're saying makes sense. One question I'd have for you is, so when people are transitioning and they have those, because I know I used to have it a lot and I struggled with it, especially if I eat sugary or sweet foods. But when you're battling a binge, right, those cravings, and you're eating meat for a while, maybe a few weeks, I mean, how do you cope with that? So, right, you're like, you feel that anxiety of like, oh my God, I just want that sugary something. Like, how do you manage that?
So I personally don't get like the physical cravings anymore. Like, it's been so long, it's not something I have to deal with anymore. But I have clients that battle that. And my advice in the beginning for someone just starting, if they come to me and like their history so far is, I've been trying to do keto, but I can't make it past, or trying to do carnivore, can't make it past 3 or 4 days. So I'm not giving people permission to binge necessarily, but what I'm saying is eat all the fat and protein that you need, because the most important thing right now, if you can't get more than 3 or 4 days in, the most important thing right now is that you don't give in to those cravings. I think it was Jimmy Moore that originally said that cravings are like stray cats. If you feed them, they keep coming back, right? So if people think that we see the question all the time, how do you handle your sweet tooth? You don't give your sweet tooth anything, like, because it'll just keep lingering,
Yes.
I'd much rather not have to battle it at all than to like constantly like, ooh, what do I do? What do I, fat bombs, what, So yeah, I just tell them eat all the fat and protein you need, because you know what's going to happen. Even if they're gorging on, the first week, if they're gorging on meat, fatty meat, ultimately their body is going to feel satiated, and the cravings are going to subside, and they're going to feel calm. And then after that, they have the mental wherewithal to start dealing with the emotional side of why do they want to eat. So, it depends on the person. Some people that takes a week. I had somebody who she had been a vegan for 5 years, and she was starved. She felt like her words to me every day for like the first 3 months were, I'm starving, I'm so hungry, I thought I wasn't supposed to be hungry on keto. She was like panicked, and she was eating in her mind a lot and over her total daily energy expenditure, and she didn't gain any weight. And then finally, like 3 months in, she messages me, she's like, oh my God, I'm not hungry. Yeah. Like it was like the first time she experienced like not being hungry. So some people experience it right away. Other people, depending on their history and how, malnourished they are and what their metabolic condition is, it just, takes longer. But my advice always is eat a lot of fat and protein, because eventually your body will be like, oh, hey, we're good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think one other thing I would say is a lot of vegetarians, because I was vegetarian for 12 years, and so we get used to feeling full just based on volume, and so we need that big stomach stretch, like, oh, I am full, right? And so, but you don't really get that with meat, and unless you eat a tremendous amount, you're not going to feel that big bulging bloat. And so some of that might just be the transition of being aware of like what really is satiety to you. And so I am on the same page with you. I tell my clients, eat 5 pounds if you have to, because over time your body's going to be like, okay, I trust that you're going to nourish me now, and I don't need that amount of meat. You can cut it back. But the biggest thing I always see is a lot of people try to cut meat in the beginning because they're like, hey, I'm losing weight, I don't feel hungry, let me cut down to 800 calories. I'm going to lose a lot of weight. And then it's hormonal issues are going to come into place, right? So yeah, I think the key is really every time you feel a craving, just eat meat, yes. eat fats, and don't touch sugars, because it'll linger. And I mean, part of the reason why with Carnivore 75 Hard I said no sweeteners is because I want people to just try and have taste for once in their life how it is to have no sweets, no sugary cravings, and see how freeing it is, right? So a lot of people find that carnivore can be restrictive, or they view that, but it's unbelievable how much freedom you gain from this way of eating, right?
Sure. And can we talk about that word, like the restrictive?
Yes.
We see this all the time. So yeah, carnivore, keto, it's all restrictive, right? And it's always bantered about, like especially like in the eating disorder community, like it's a bad word to restrict things, right? But we restrict things all the time that are harmful to us, and what about like people that are allergic to peanuts? They restrict themselves from eating peanuts. We restrict ourselves from eating rat poison because we know it's harmful. We restrict ourselves from running out into traffic. Like there's all kinds of things that we don't do because we know it's harmful, but somehow like in the diet realm, like, ooh, restricting is bad. It'll set, but it's perfectly okay to remove things that are harmful to you mentally and physically.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, I 100% agree. My dietitian, and I saw a few of them, would always say, every food should be allowed. Every food, you should be able to eat it and have no issue with it. And if you have any emotional effect after you eat it, then you still have an eating disorder. Like I'll never forget that they told me that. And then I found keto, and all of it went away pretty much. And then carnivore really healed me. And then I remember, like you, I was so angry because I'm like, no wonder the people that go through these eating disorder facilities, the people that fall back into eating disorders is more than 50%, because their system is wrong.
Right.
And so
they're trying to force people to be moderators when they abstain. It's like if the alcohol treatment program, in rehab, they said, you should only be able to drink 1 beer every Friday night. And if you are doing more than that,
No, it's more like you have to drink one every Friday night, and if you can't, then something's wrong with you, right?
Yeah, you can't, like it's that it just makes no sense. And so many people, we see it all the time. So many people think that something is wrong with them because they're not capable of eating, the portion control.
Yeah.
They're not capable of that. And so they then turn it inward on themselves, I must be lazy, I must be crazy, I'm this, I'm that, and they think something is wrong with them. But it's really that the system is broken. Trying to, have somebody moderate something that they've proven over and over and over again that they have no control over. I mean, it's just kind of cruel.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think our society, there's another, so extroverts and introverts are similar to that too. So our society is kind of like run and revered with people that are extroverts, right? Like if you're outgoing, you're more likable, right? Those types of things. But there's a lot of work that's done by introverts. So, and it's the same thought with moderators. So the world is kind of like designed for moderators, but the reality is not a lot of us are moderators, especially when we have highly, highly addictive foods like sugar and carbs. So I think it's time where we, shed light into this and saying it's okay if you're not a moderator, because we are not designed to be a moderator, right? So if you're an abstainer, understand that about you and then get over the addiction, right? And just like if you're an introvert, it's okay. You don't have to force yourself to be an extrovert, right? So it's similar.
Yeah, the acceptance is a really hard thing, for people to accept that they need to abstain, to accept that we're not like other people, that we have to do something differently. Like if I tried to eat like my husband, like eat everything that he ate, did everything he did, it would make me crazy, and I wouldn't be able to stick to it. And I think that's really important what you said, realize what you are. And so many people desperately want to be moderators. They want to believe that they're a moderator. But, again, that distinction, that line is, if you have to try really hard at it, and if you've tried moderating and it leads to a binge, you're not a moderator. And once people accept that, it is very freeing. And it's hard for people to see that up front. Like, in the beginning, the thought of like never having cheesecake again did not bring me peace. I was like, this seems so unfair. But eventually, the longer that you're food sober, the better you feel, the more clear your mind is, and it just becomes, second nature. It's who you are.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a key thing for me also has been just reframing. So instead of like, I can't have that, I need to give up that, it's sort of giving this like kind of grandiose view to sugar and all these things that I desire, but I must, not do that. But instead it's, no, I choose life. I choose to be healthy and present for my kids. Like, I mean, I went to outpatient care and like, I had my son taken away from me, right? Like that's no amount of sugar is ever going to be worth that. So, sorry, but so yeah, I mean, I don't care about a cheesecake. Like none of that can replace the memories that now I am able to have with my kids and these like connections, like, right? Like you're going to be a friend for life now, Mary, right?
Yes.
Like these things, like you can't replace that with any amount of sugar. So I don't care. Like it's not, I'm giving it up. It's like, no, I choose life and I choose to have happy memories with my loved ones and make new ones and be able to be present for Thanksgiving and Christmas and not be scared of, oh my gosh, am I going to fit into my clothes? Are people going to judge me that I gained weight? All these thoughts that are so normal that we have. But what if we're free from all of it because we don't have the addiction to food anymore?
Right. So. Yeah. I mean, I say like, I'm grown up. I can have whatever I want, but I don't want those things anymore, because for me to choose cheesecake would be, I'm choosing fat pants, I'm choosing type 2 diabetes, I'm choosing sleep apnea, choosing to like all of these things that I have rid myself of. And it doesn't make sense to do that. Might it taste good in the moment? Of course. Like nobody's gonna, I'm not gonna lie to people or to myself and say, oh, gross, that's no good. Like, because there are actually programs out there that they're like, tell yourself it doesn't even taste good.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but it does. Like we acknowledge, it does taste good, but that's all it has to offer. is that that temporary satisfaction in the moment, and everything after that is downhill and not worth it.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. So what are your plans for Thanksgiving and Christmas? How do you plan to navigate those holidays?
I feel like I'm not like the best person to ask about this. Like, it's just me and my, like, we don't do like the big family thing. It's just me, my husband and our boys and my daughter-in-law. Like, we don't do anything major. My daughter-in-law asked me to make the keto cheesecake that I made last year. So
okay.
I wasn't going to do any desserts this year. I was going to just buy like the real thing because most of my family doesn't, most of the people that are here don't eat keto.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's really like, we're going to do prime rib because I live in Lockhart. We're the barbecue capital. And so I'm going to do prime rib from one of the barbecue places and just, make a keto cheesecake and all the little keto sides. And my mom will probably bring carby stuff.
Okay, no, I totally get it. My friends and family, as much as like I'm a big spokesman for Carnivore, they think I'm crazy. So
yeah, like I used to like try to like, get people to try it. It's like the real thing. And like my husband was like my guinea pig, like forever, right? Like I would try to make like keto bread and stuff. And I'd be like, ooh, this is really good. And he'd be like, this is like cardboard.
Yeah, no, my husband's the same, but yeah. So thank you so much, Mary, for joining me. Where can people find you? And, if you could talk a little bit about your coaching and all that stuff, and I'll also include it in the show notes.
Okay. Well, on Instagram and Facebook, I'm at KetoMary71. And the coaching website is KetoEvangelistCoaching.com. And all of our coaching programs and offerings are on that website.
Okay, well, thank you so much. You do so much for the community. You are, such a beacon of light. So thank you so much. I've always enjoyed seeing your posts, and thank you for, being part of Carnivore 75 Hard and, supporting the community. I know you don't really need it, but, thank you. Thank you for doing it because
I'm loving it. It's fun to be a part of it. And I do. And thank you so much for having me. And I love your stuff, your graphics. I share them all the time with people. I'm like, read this series. Like,
yeah, thank you. We should do one on like disordered eating. I think I think it'll help because it's such a topic that people are scared to talk about. It's like you said, it's in society, even though the DSM psychology handbook officially put binge eating as a disorder, people don't like talking about it because it's like no matter what you have
shame
to eat,
involved.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame when it comes to food, and it's like, no, you know what? People or scientists are making these finagled foods that are created in the lab to find the perfect sweet spot so that your brain goes ding, right? And that you want more. So it's not our fault. And I don't want people to think, oh, I have this like behind closed doors, I binge, and in public I eat so clean. But no, it's normal that we create these bad foods because they designed it that way. So
Right.
Okay. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more and we can do this again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And guys, I'll keep everything in the show notes. Definitely follow Mary. She is a wealth of information. She shares so much. She shares her outfit of the days. They're so cool. And she's just a pleasure. So I hope you guys follow her, and I will talk to you soon, Mary. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.